Welcome to The Outlet, an NBA podcast hosted by Nick Fay and Kory Waldron.
On this express edition of The Outlet, Kory and I recap Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We talk Bam's block, Kemba's struggles, and more. As always, you can find The Outlet on all streaming platforms. Enjoy the show. All right, Kory, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Heat pick up the dub, 117, 114 in overtime. Ridiculous finish. Let's talk about that. Give me your reaction to that Bam Adebayo block.
It brought me back to the Pacers-Knicks series from almost a decade ago, in which Roy Hibbert blocked Carmelo Anthony at the rim. I mean, Jayson Tatum was up. I mean, right, that looked like it was going to be...
He tried the poster.
Right, that was going to be a poster slam, and Bam said, no. Big-time block. I mean, that Miami Heat team, they really turned it up in that fourth quarter. I felt like the game was over, actually, at one point, and then the Miami Heat completely flipped the script.
Yeah, at the end of the third quarter, they were down, I think, 14 or in that range towards the end. That block by Bam, I mean, I was speechless. Like, I did not anticipate that, and especially, like, having to rotate over. We're not talking about him already, like, standing in front of the rim. He made the rotation. Tatum freaking goes up for the poster, and he just says, nah. And it was just ridiculous. And I think defensively in overtime in the fourth quarter, Miami just really picked it up. But even the play prior, Jimmy Butler going one-on-one against Jayson Tatum, getting the and one. It was just like, hey, Tatum, I know you're the star, but I still got this bucket.
I mean, you know, I tweeted about it, but, you know, if they had lost this game, Jimmy Butler would have ripped Derrick Jones Jr. apart in the locker room because Jimmy Butler hit that crazy three in the corner. And again, you know, even though Jimmy Butler's a professional, he doesn't hit that shot consistently enough for us
only when it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a different game when it's a tie game or a close game late. But I mean, that was another tough shot by Jimmy Butler. I mean, he was crucial down late. You know, Goran Dragic was really good this game. You know, Miami in general, you know, every time I felt like the Celtics were going to pull away, Miami answered, right? I mean, Tyler Herro, even though he didn't shoot well, you know, rebounding really well, playmaking for others really well, didn't get burned on defense. And honestly, when Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro were getting burned on defense early in the game, Spoelstra was like, all right, we're going to start playing zone. And then the Celtics, it took them a while to adjust to that.
I felt like that zone was really important in the second quarter, but I want to get back to that Derrick Jones, Marcus Smart play.
Yeah.
In my eyes, honestly, like I guess Derrick Jones Jr. needs to know better that it's Marcus Smart, but he definitely flopped.
Yeah.
Like there was contact, but it wasn't like he ran him over. And the NBA just has to do a better job of understanding like, hey, that's Marcus Smart. He's flopping in that situation. And it just kind of gets frustrating because we saw this a lot in the previous series. And like, no disrespect to him, Smart had a great game other than that play, but you just don't want to see a game decided by a play like that. And Boston could have easily won because of that.
I mean, there was even that play earlier. I don't know who got the foul called on. It was Wanamaker on Crowder near the top of the three-point line, but it was two. And that was definitely a flop by Crowder. And then it was kind of like a makeup call because it probably should have been a block on Daniel Tice a couple of possessions later, and they gave it a charging call on Crowder. But there were a couple calls in that fourth quarter that I felt were really suspect.
Yeah, that Crowder one, I agree. He definitely kicked out his leg. He almost kicked Wanamaker in the nuts. Like I was just like, okay, you guys got to understand what's happening and like know what players are trying to do. But getting to the game a little bit, we're obviously doing a mini recap, so we'll try to be as quick as possible. First quarter reaction, you know, Boston goes up 8. Miami's really struggling to score. What were you thinking at that point?
I mean, I just felt like Boston. It felt like it was going to be Boston's kind of game because. Yeah. And I say that because it was Marcus Smart scoring majority of the points early. And we had kind of said, you know, I mean, early on in the first quarter, in the first half, they were trapping Kemba a lot. They were putting a lot of pressure on Kemba, and they were daring Marcus Smart to beat them. And Marcus Smart all night was beating them. Anytime they doubled off somebody else, Marcus Smart was wide open, and he took advantage of it. And I think he shot, 13 or 14 threes in this game. And that's not
26 points, 9 of 18 from the field, 6 of 13 from deep. Like, they're just crazy numbers. And it felt like majority of that scoring was in the first three quarters because in the fourth, I can't even recall him really putting up many shots.
No, it definitely switched back to, and honestly, you just reminded me, I don't remember seeing much Jalen Brown at all in overtime in the fourth quarter.
I really just hate how they use Jalen Brown, to be honest. I think that was one thing that stuck out. Kemba's really struggling, but hey, you have this other fringe all-star player on your team in Jalen Brown. Run some plays for him. Let him get involved, especially because, like, Miami wasn't giving him the same attention that they were giving, Jayson Tatum and Kemba Walker. And I just feel like they're not using him. And the fact that he scored 17 points, had 5 rebounds, had 2 assists, and not being involved just goes to show how good a player Jaylen Brown really is.
For sure. And it felt like there was a couple stretches in the first half in which he probably should have been utilized a little bit more. There was a contested 3 I think he hit at one point. But like you said, there was a lot of Kemba for a guy who, again, just can't get it going. Maybe that's
6 of 19 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3.
Obviously hit a couple big shots in overtime, but again, for the majority of the game he was struggling. And honestly, Brad Wanamaker had a better game than Kemba, in my opinion. Wanamaker was huge coming off the bench. Obviously, I think he was out there slightly too long. But for the most part, he played some really good minutes for the Celtics team when their guards were struggling.
He gave him some nice defense, active hands in there, forced a couple steals. And with Kemba, we talked about Tyler Herro being able to stay on the floor defensively, and he was able to defend Kemba in the fourth quarter and overtime. He got, the best of him a few times, but not to the point where Miami was like, we need to sub this guy out. Yeah. And I think that says more about Kemba than it does Tyler Herro. Like, Tyler Herro's never going to be an elite defender in the NBA. He's not the best athlete. Just like Kemba can't get it going. I don't know if it's a jump shot, getting to the rim. Maybe it's not getting the calls, but something's up with him, and he's just so out of rhythm. And I feel like he just needs to kind of let the game come to him a little bit more.
Yeah, I would agree. And then you look on the flip side, I guess it's just no Canner, right? I mean, Daniel Tice fouled out, and obviously they went to Robert Williams, but I do find it slightly odd how there's just not even a sighting of Enes Kanter, but I guess it's not because he's just such a defensive liability. But I was surprised that with Daniel Tice in foul trouble that they didn't go to Kanter at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big Kanter guy, so I'm no offense to Brad Stevens there. I think he did a good job with that situation. I probably would have played maybe Grant Williams more at center if you don't like that. I think Robert Williams, we talked about him a decent amount on the preview, wasn't necessarily his best performance. I feel like Miami was kind of able to exploit his lack of experience. So I don't know what Stevens will do going forward. I think he could go small a little bit more. You saw him kind of do that at the end of the game. And I think like Bam is a great player and obviously had huge moments, but I don't think he's going to necessarily make them pay to the highest extent down low.
No, 100%. I mean, if you're Miami, you feel good, right? Duncan Robinson being in foul trouble, pretty much being a non-factor. And, I don't know, we talked about Jay Crowder on the preview. I mean, Miami Heat, Jay Crowder's just different, right? I mean, he was really involved this entire game, looks really confident in all the shots he took. I mean, there was the 1-3, he was slightly off balance. He completely missed the rim and banked off the side of the backboard. But, Crowder had a really good game. And I think if you're the Miami Heat, you feel good because, Duncan Robinson didn't play well. Kendrick Nunn didn't play well. And then, Tyler Herro didn't shoot all that well. He finished 5 of 10. I didn't realize he shot that well at the end of the game. But
that 1-3 he hit in the fourth quarter, it was the fourth quarter where he was just standing still, Kemba was in his face. He was just drain. I was just this kid, Tyler Herro has probably been the most impressive rookie I've watched in a long time in the postseason. Just going into a role, getting clutch moments, and closing game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't recall a rookie kind of getting the touches he was getting too in terms of running the offense at points.
So here's a fun little stat, and I really noticed it in the fourth quarter, how Miami always makes the right pass, right?
Yeah.
There was a couple of times where someone was wide open, and they gave up the shot for an even more wide open shot.
That Jay Crowder pass where he had a decent 3-point look, but he threw it to Jimmy Butler under the rim and got the dunk. Yeah, precisely.
And then Jimmy Butler swung it to Tyler Herro, I think, at top of the corner for a 3 as well late in the game. Yep. 40 field goals made by the Miami Heat tonight, 32 team assists. That's ridiculous.
And that's kind of what we talked about on the preview too. This isn't a Miami team that's going to beat you with a ton of ISOs and things like that. They're going to have to get people involved, run plays, come off screens. And honestly, you mentioned Duncan Robinson. He's a big component of their offense. They run so much off-ball stuff. He provides a lot of spacing, non-factor due to foul trouble, never really got in rhythm. So I'd feel pretty good about Miami. I think on the Boston side, they'll talk a little bit more about them. Marcus Smart had that big game. I think Kemba maybe found a little bit of rhythm in that fourth quarter and overtime that could possibly positive moving forward. But regardless, they're going to probably need Daniel Tice to stay on the floor and provide more than 4 points and 4 rebounds.
Yeah, Tice has got to be better. We talked about offensive rebounding on the preview. The Miami Heat won offensive rebounds 7-6, and that's an area the Miami Heat are one of the worst teams in the league in terms of offensive rebounding. And the Celtics not winning in that area, that's also an issue. And like you said, Tice definitely struggled. Bam got the best of him tonight, and I honestly, I could see that being a trend in this series quite easily.
And we talked about that on the preview too. That's probably one of the biggest mismatches that Miami has over Boston is that Bam versus Tice, where Tice has been a great player this year, but not to the level which Bam is. Who else on Boston do you think needs to step up going into game 2?
I mean, I don't know if it's step up. We kind of mentioned, but like I think Jalen Brown needs to get more aggressive.
Yeah.
Especially when a guy like Kemba isn't shooting well. Like you can't have. Now, granted, like Marcus Smart, all the shots they're validated shots because he was efficient. Jayson Tatum, he's your star. He gets those shots.
But I want to bring up a point just with that Marcus Smart thing, and I saw you tweet about this. At times, it can be negative because Marcus Smart is taking so many shots, and in some ways, it's negative too because it's not allowing other people to get involved in the offense. And you have 10 Marcus Smart shots in the first 16 minutes of the game, and all of a sudden you look, Jalen Brown has 3, and other guys aren't getting involved. So it's like, yeah, it's great for him to be aggressive and take those shots, but at what point do you need to make sure you're getting your other players involved and in rhythm?
Especially in that first quarter, right? Like he started off, 4 of 6 or whatever, and then there was like 2 possessions in a row where he was isolating himself. And it's like, yo, this is not going to help the Celtics win this game.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. I mean, I just think Jalen Brown, maybe it's just he needs to get more touches, and I don't know what the exact formula is, but when Kemba Walker's struggling, like you said, you don't want Marcus Smart taking near 20 shots a game. That's not a winning formula for this team.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wish Gordon Hayward gets back at some point in this series because they definitely miss his presence out there.
Yeah, another stabilizer, a good, playmaker, a guy that can score from all levels of the floor, decent, probably good defender. And, we didn't really talk about Jayson Tatum. He was excellent. I thought offensively, 30 points, he could have probably got better shots late in the game. But I also thought defensively, he had a lot of really big plays, 3 steals, 2 blocks, active hands, and really was, the best defender on Boston, it felt like this game.
I mean, I would say, about to the fourth quarter, it was a pretty quiet Jimmy Butler night. And I would give a lot of credit to that to Jayson Tatum. He
started the game on him.
Yeah, he gave him a lot of trouble. And like you mentioned, the one big issue I had with Tatum is it felt like late in the game, he got a little bit too step backy in his jump shots. He was a little bit relying on it too much. And, that end of game possession by the Celtics, I thought was terrible. I mean, Kemba waiting to get the play going and then giving it to, you only need 2 to win. And Tatum takes a fadeaway or a step back 3, and I just thought that was a terrible. I think they could have found something slightly better than what they.
You would expect Brad Stevens, his out of timeout plays are usually great, that he would have probably hit them with something, good. And unless he just thought, hey, Miami's been kind of blowing up our stuff a lot. They probably have an idea what we're going to run. Let me just give it to my best player and see what he can do. Yeah. But talking a little bit more about Boston. What do you want to see them do as a team going into game 2? Like, how do they need to start the first quarter, which obviously went really well for them? Is it, get Jalen Brown touches? Is it try to get Kemba in rhythm? What are you thinking on their end?
I mean, I think it's getting your wings involved and getting the wing star. I think you got to get Tatum going early. You got to get Jalen Brown going early and let Kemba feed off of those 2 guys. Let Kemba pick his spots off of other guys getting their offense going to make his job easier, because I'm telling you, that first half in particular, they put a lot of pressure on Kemba Walker defensively. So I would look at those 2 guys, and also, maybe watch some more film on the zone, because it did feel like the Celtics had no idea how to attack the zone when the Miami Heat switched to it in the second quarter.
Yeah, it was either like they forced a turnover or they ended up with an easy bucket. There was no really in between in like running a successful offense against that zone. And Miami runs zone more than any other team in the NBA. So give them props for being able to do that. I think being able to throw out different defensive looks are huge. But I agree. I think you want to get Jaylen Brown going, kind of play off him a little bit maybe at points, because they're not giving him the amount of attention. And that might lead to getting you some good looks for Kemba. You know what I mean? And I think like with Kemba, he just needs to kind of get away from some of those ISOs and let the game come to him a little bit. You still want him to be aggressive because, he's still a big scoring part, and you would expect his numbers to probably pick up. But the 3-point shooting is definitely worrisome, because I want to say since like game 5 of the previous round against Toronto, he's shooting like under 20% from 3.
I mean, he's 1 for 9 today.
So it didn't get better.
No, it did not get any better after today.
What about defensively for Boston going to the next game?
I really don't know. I mean, there wasn't necessarily anything I disliked about their defense that stuck out terribly. I mean, because I don't know how you fix the issues in the paint. I mean, Miami, I think, had, they had 50 plus points, I think, in the paint. I don't know what the exact number finished, but I know in the fourth quarter they had 44, so they had to finish around 50. Yeah. And I don't know how you fix that issue when you have Daniel Tice and Robert Williams.
Yeah, you don't really have a great option. Maybe.
I mean, what do you think? Do you have any solution?
Maybe going smaller could help. Maybe at different points, just making it a little easier to defend, but you're not getting that rim protection. I think Miami shot 44% from three. You need to change that number. Like, you know what I mean? If they're going to shoot that type of high percentage from three, it's going to be tough to beat them. Obviously, that's different guys getting open shots. I think at different points, though, they were like almost overly aggressive defensively. Like, I can recall in my head, they were like trying to deny Jimmy Butler the ball at the 3-point line, where it's like, yo, let Jimmy Butler shoot threes, or he's just not going to do it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay. And then they overplayed. He ended up getting an easy bucket in the rim. I think at times maybe a little bit too aggressive, and also miscommunications. You know, you saw some of that from Kemba and Tatum, especially on those backdoor screens for Jimmy Butler to cut to the rim, and even on that 3-point play, just not in sync defensively in the same level which Miami was, which I thought Miami's defense in the fourth and overtime, the rotations were like amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that because the one thing I do remember about Jalen Brown was in the first half getting beat on a lot of backdoor cuts.
And that's a problem for him in general. Like, that's an area where he needs to be a little bit better. And I thought maybe as Boston as a team, that was some of the issue, and just the fouling too, you know, letting Miami get to the line. I think that could be said for both teams and maybe some of the referees, but
I mean, if you're Miami, you feel good, right? I mean, there's almost nothing I could say Miami did super poorly or that they really need to fix, because honestly, Duncan Robinson being in foul trouble, not playing that much, you still shoot that high of a percentage from three. And I mean, you played Kelly Olynyk and he was bad, right? I think you were definitely right in the preview. You can't have Kelly Olynyk out there in this series.
Him and Kendrick Nunn, you know, you got Olynyk at -9 and Nunn at -10.
Yeah.
And it felt that way.
And Iggy had one solid, he had a block on Tatum at the rim. But I mean, Iggy didn't have that big of a presence either. I mean, the bench unit for both teams, you know, outside of Wanamaker and Tyler Herro, there wasn't that much bench presence by either side.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at, you know, Miami side, you're assuming Duncan Robinson will get going, but you can't necessarily expect Goran Dragic to play this way too.
Yeah,
you know, like,
he had a great first half. He really cooled off though.
Yeah, but like 11 and 19, 3 of 6, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, some good defensive possessions. I was really impressed with Dragic, and he really carried the load when Butler wasn't, you know, in sync. But Kory, hit me with your game 2 predictions.
Game 2 prediction, I'm going to say the Boston Celtics bounce back and get a W. You know, I think we're going to see more Jaylen Brown. I think we're going to see Tatum obviously step it up to another level. And, you know, hopefully Kemba Walker can find his spots off of those two guys. So I'm going to go with the Celtics. You?
Yeah, I'm rolling with Boston in game 2. I think Jaylen Brown, I'm thinking like 27 points, 28 points. I think he'll get it going, being aggressive. I think that Boston will understand that Miami is going to really struggle to score in the half court. If they can limit those transition opportunities and not turn the ball over, they'll be able to kind of slow them down offensively. Because I felt like in that second quarter, Miami got it going with some of those transition plays. And even that fourth quarter with just like a lot of effort plays. And Boston, if they can slow that down, cut that out, then I think they'll be in good shape. And, you know, they're the more talented team. So Miami just has to play harder. And if Boston just kind of picks up that effort level in a couple areas and cleans up those small mistakes like miscommunications, I think they should be okay. But it looks like it's going to be a great series. And I doubt this is the only game that goes to OT.
I would love to see them all go to OT.
All right, Kory, it's been great. And as always, you can catch the Outlet on all streaming platforms.
Peace out, knuckleheads.